AITA for telling my mom she's not invited to my graduation after she chose my stepdad over me? I never imagined I'd be the kind of person who would tell my own mother she wasn't invited to one of the biggest days of my life. The hardest part is that I don't hate my mom. If anything, I've spent most of my life craving her attention, or, at the very least, her willingness to stand up for me when things got bad. But that just wasn't something she ever gave, and I didn't realize how deeply that affected me until the graduation situation forced everything to the surface. My biological dad wasn't around. He left when I was 3, and I don't remember him. My mom told me growing up that he wasn't cut out for fatherhood, and honestly, even as an adult, that's probably true. I've never tried to reach out, and he's never looked for me either. So as far as father figures go, my stepdad, Mark, was the only one I grew up with. My mom married Mark when I was 8. I remember the wedding because it was small, intimate. I didn't understand how much my life was about to change, either. When he first came into our lives, Mark seemed fine. Not warm, not fatherly, not cruel, just there. He was the kind of man who always seemed tired from work, always had an opinion about everything, and always viewed kids as these inconveniences that made noise and ate food and cost money. I didn't dislike him, but I didn't like him either. I tolerated him because that's what kids do. My mom loved him, and at 8, that was enough for me to try. But things changed quickly once they were married. It started small. He didn't like the way I left things around the house. He didn't like how I interrupted adults without meaning to. He didn't like how I complained about the vegetables he insisted I eat. Basic kid behaviors, not malicious, not wild, not out of the ordinary. Still, each one became a point of contention, something he'd address with this edge in his voice, like I was an employee making mistakes instead of a child learning how to exist. At first, I expected my mom to step in. Sometimes she did, but it was always light, always defusing the situation instead of confronting it. If he snapped, she'd laugh and say, "She's just a kid, relax." If I got upset, she'd pull me aside later and say, "He's still getting used to being a parent. Try not to take it personally." And so I tried. The older I got, the worse things became. When I hit middle school, Mark's criticisms became constant. I didn't eat enough at dinner. I ate too much at dinner. I spent too much time in my room. I spent not enough time with the family. I asked too many questions. I didn't talk enough. It was like he had a rotating wheel of complaints. When I finally learned the word controlling, it felt like a revelation. But the real problem wasn't him. It was my mom. She always defended him. Not directly, she never said I was wrong or that he was right. Her defense took the form of minimizing everything. Mark didn't mean it like that. He's just stressed. You know how he gets after work. You're being dramatic. He's trying his best. I heard that last one more times than I can count. Things came to a head when I was 14. Mark and I got into an argument because he accused me of being lazy for leaving a textbook on the kitchen counter. I told him it wasn't a big deal and I'd move it in a second. He said, "You always have an excuse." I snapped back, just frustrated. "Why do you always have to nitpick everything I do?" He got mad. Really mad. His voice went sharp in a way that made me freeze, and he grounded me for talking back. Grounded. At 14. For being frustrated. My mom backed him up. "Respect is important," she said. "You can't speak to adults that way," she added. I felt betrayed, and for the first time, I realized something deep. When forced to pick sides, my mom would never pick mine. High school was more of the same. Mark criticized everything from my clothes to my grades, yes, even my straight-A grades. "Anyone can get good grades if they have no social life," he once said when my mom proudly showed him my report card. She laughed as if it was a joke. It wasn't. I started spending as much time out of the house as possible. Clubs, library, part-time job, friends' houses, anywhere that wasn't under the constant supervision of a man who seemed allergic to my existence. The more I avoided home, the more Mark complained that I never participated in the family. He'd guilt-trip me, or worse, guilt-trip my mom, which she then transferred onto me. My mom kept trying to play peacekeeper. But peacekeepers don't take sides. And choosing to stay neutral in an unequal situation is just choosing the oppressor. I didn't know that language then, but I felt the truth of it every time she minimized my feelings. By the time I was applying for colleges, I knew I needed out. Not just out of the house, out of the gravitational pull my mother had created around Mark. Every decision revolved around him. Every family plan was designed with his preferences first. Every conflict ended with her smoothing things over for him. I worked my ass off to get scholarships. I got a campus job. I saved money. And when I got accepted to a school 3 hours away, I felt something I'd never felt before: freedom. My mom cried when she dropped me off at the dorms. She hugged me tight and said all the right things. "I'm proud of you. I'll miss you. Don't forget to call." But Mark stayed in the car. He didn't hug me, didn't say goodbye, didn't even walk me to the door. When my mom asked him gently if he wanted to come see my room, he sighed and said, "I'll wait here." That's the moment I knew he had never wanted to be my parent, and my mom had chosen him anyway. College was the happiest I'd ever been. Not because everything was perfect, but because for the first time in my life, I wasn't walking on eggshells. I could leave a textbook on the counter without being lectured. I could breathe without feeling criticized. I could exist. I still kept in contact with my mom. She called every week, sometimes every few days. She always asked about classes, friends, activities, but never apologized for the past. Never acknowledged anything. And I had learned not to bring it up because she would just say the same lines. "He didn't mean it. He's trying. I'm sorry you feel that way." Fast forward to this year, graduation. This was supposed to be my moment, my accomplishment, something I earned on my own. My university allows each student 6 tickets, and because my graduating class is huge, there are no extras. I already knew who I wanted to invite. My best friend, my roommate, my aunt, the only adult who ever really supported me, my cousin, my mom. And well, that was the issue, because inviting my mom meant inviting Mark. And I wasn't doing that. I didn't want to fight. When I called my mom about graduation, I honestly thought we could talk it through. I had rehearsed what I wanted to say in the most neutral way possible. She was invited, Mark was not, and that was the end of it. She picked up cheerful. I waited until the conversation naturally slowed. "Mom," I said, "I need to talk to you about graduation. I want you to come, but I'm not inviting Mark." The silence on the line wasn't long, but it was long enough. "Oh," she finally said. "Why not?" "Because it's my day, and I don't want to be uncomfortable the whole time." She sighed in that way she does when she thinks I'm being unreasonable. "You know he's been trying. Things have gotten better." "Mom," I said carefully, "he hasn't changed. He barely spoke to me when I was home for the holidays. He was tired. Work's been stressful." That excuse was so familiar it almost felt rehearsed. "I'm not doing this to punish anyone," I said. "I just want to enjoy the day. I want you there, just you." She hesitated. "Do you know how that's going to look? People are going to wonder why my husband isn't with me." "I'm not concerned about appearances," I said. "I just want to feel supported." "Well, I care how it looks," she said sharply. "And I don't want to make things awkward for him. He's part of this family." I didn't say anything. Not because I didn't have anything to say, but because I could already feel the conversation slipping into the same old pattern. She kept going. "He's done a lot for you, whether you see it or not." "Like what?" I asked quietly. It wasn't meant to be confrontational. I genuinely wanted to know what she meant. She paused, then said almost defensively, "Well, he took on the responsibility of raising you. He didn't have to do that. You weren't his child." Something about the way she phrased it hit me harder than I expected. I swallowed. "Okay," I said. "So that's how you see it?" "That's not what I meant," she said quickly. "I just meant he stepped up. And now you're excluding him. It feels like you're holding on to things that are in the past." "Mom, it wasn't the past for me," I said. "It was my entire childhood. And I'm allowed to draw a boundary for one day." She let out a tight breath. "Well, I'm not going to come without him. That would be hurtful and disrespectful." I felt something settle in my chest, Not anger exactly. Just clarity. Then you don't have to come, I said. My voice came out steadier than I expected. She was quiet for several seconds. Then, in a small, disappointed voice, she said, "If that's really how you feel, I don't know what to say." And then she hung up. I just sat there for a while, staring at my phone, because it felt like confirmation of something I'd been trying not to admit for years. If choosing between us was ever required, she was always going to choose him. Update. The morning of graduation, I woke up earlier than I expected with the sense that today was going to be a turning point. I moved slowly through my routine. I didn't fuss over what someone else might think, or what someone else might demand. My aunt, the only adult who had ever really supported me, drove me to campus. We laughed about old family stories on the way, reminisced about moments only she and I had shared, and for the first time in a long while, I felt seen. "You ready?" she asked with her usual warmth, a small smile that reminded me why she had always been my safe place. I nodded. As ready as I'll ever be. She opened the passenger door for me, and we settled into the car. The ride was quiet at first, just the hum of the engine and the occasional car passing by. I stared out the window at streets that had been familiar for years, streets that held memories both light and heavy. "You've changed a lot since high school," my aunt said after a few minutes. "I don't mean in the obvious ways, but you carry yourself differently now." I shrugged, I guess. I had to. She reached over and squeezed my hand. Before we reached campus, my phone buzzed.
Mark.
My stomach clenched instinctively. I stared at the screen, thumb hovering over the green button. His name had carried a strange weight my whole life, never entirely comforting. This time, I didn't answer. It buzzed again. I ignored it. "You okay?" my aunt asked casually, glancing at me. I nodded quickly.
"Yeah."
"Just old habits, I guess." She didn't press, just smiled knowingly. She'd known me long enough to understand what old habits really meant. We parked near the auditorium, and I grabbed my bag. The first step onto campus felt surreal. I could hear the buzz of voices, the occasional laughter, the clapping as friends reunited, and I felt at home, in a way that I hadn't felt in years. As we walked toward the entrance, my phone buzzed again.
Mark.
I swallowed hard and did the only thing that felt right. I turned the phone off. Not silent.
Off.
"You're really doing this," my aunt said softly, almost to herself. "I have to," I said, my voice low. "I can't let him ruin this day like he did everything else." She nodded, her hand brushing mine for a quick squeeze. "Good. Stand your ground." Inside the auditorium, the ceremony started. I felt my heart lift slightly as names were called, diplomas handed out, the sound of applause echoing around the high ceilings. When they called my name, I walked across the stage, shaking the dean's hand, receiving my diploma. I held it for a moment, letting it sink in, all the work, all the years, all the struggles mine. After the ceremony, we moved outside for photos. My aunt insisted on taking multiple shots of me holding my diploma, laughing with friends, trying to capture every detail. It was exhausting, but in a good way. For once, I didn't have to pretend. I could be proud without fear of judgment. Then my phone buzzed again.
Mom.
I stared at the screen for a moment. Her name flashed across the screen, urgent and tentative at the same time. I debated letting it go to voicemail. Part of me wanted to protect this bubble I'd created, but finally, I answered. "Hi, Mom," I said cautiously. "Honey," her voice cracked slightly. "I just wanted to see how you're doing. Is everything okay? Are you having fun?" I inhaled slowly, holding back the mix of anger and sadness. "Mom, I'm fine. Graduation was what I needed it to be. I got to enjoy it without feeling like I was constantly being judged." There was a pause on the line. I could hear her swallow. "I know this isn't what you wanted. I didn't realize how much it would hurt you." "Mom," I said quietly, "I needed you to choose me. Just once. And today I saw who you're choosing for the rest of your life." She was silent for a long moment. "I didn't mean to make you feel that way." "I know," I said, my voice steadier than I expected. But it's not just about meaning to. It's about what actually happens. You chose him over me, Mom. That's okay. I just need to accept it and move forward. There was a shaky breath on the other end. Then her voice. I don't know what to say. You don't have to say anything, I replied. I'm done arguing. I'm done hoping. I need to be around people who actually see me. She was quiet, and I could imagine her holding the phone tightly, maybe trying to form words that wouldn't come. I guess I understand, she said finally. Good, I said softly. That's all I needed. I hung up and put my phone down. The weight in my chest felt a little lighter, but more importantly, it felt clear. I had drawn a line. My aunt, standing beside me, gave me a small, approving smile. Want to head back to my place for a while? She asked. You don't have to go home tonight. Not if you don't want to. I hesitated, then nodded. Yeah, I think I'd like that. She linked her arm through mine as we walked back to the car. On the drive to her house, we talked quietly, reminiscing about lighter times, about old jokes that only the two of us understood, about family gatherings where she had been the one to actually pay attention to me. For the first time in a long while, I laughed without feeling guilty, without feeling like I was betraying someone else. When we arrived at her house, she guided me to the guest room she had already prepared. You can stay as long as you need, she said. No one's going to tell you what to do here. This is your space. I sank onto the bed, exhaustion hitting me in waves. My phone stayed off the entire evening. For once, I didn't check for messages, didn't imagine what Mark or Mom might be saying or thinking. I didn't worry about what the future might bring. I just existed. And it felt right. Update. It was a quiet afternoon when my mom showed up at my aunt's house. I hadn't expected it. I'd been sitting on the couch, scrolling through my phone, half listening to a podcast my aunt had on in the background, when I heard a hesitant knock on the door. My aunt whispered, Do you want me to stay, or? I'll handle it, I said, standing. My heart was pounding in a weird mix of anticipation and nerves. I opened the door. My mom was standing there, hands slightly clenched at her sides, looking smaller than I remembered. Maybe nervous. Maybe cautious. Hey, she said softly.
Hi, I replied. I didn't know what else to say.
She shifted from one foot to the other, then gestured toward the living room. Can we sit? I stepped aside wordlessly, letting her in, and we both settled onto the couch. I wanted to come to really talk, she said finally, her voice low. I know I haven't been the mom you needed. I know I made mistakes. Big ones. I kept my arms crossed loosely, trying to keep my tone neutral. She swallowed. Letting Mark treat you the way he did and not stepping in properly. Minimizing your feelings. Telling you it wasn't that bad, that he was trying, when what you were experiencing, it was real. It mattered, and I ignored it. I let her words sink in. My chest tightened, a mix of relief and frustration bubbling up. I'd imagined this conversation countless times in my head, how it would go, what I'd say, but hearing her admit it, actually say it out loud, was different. I appreciate you saying that, I said slowly. It's not just about saying you see it, though. It's about what you do now. Her eyes were soft, a little wet. I know. I want to do better. I want to be the mom you needed, the one who actually picks you first sometimes. I can't undo the past, but I want to try. I studied her face, searching for any trace of judgment or insincerity. I didn't find it. Instead, I saw someone who genuinely looked exhausted by her own mistakes. I want to believe that, I said finally. She nodded, exhaling slowly. There's one thing I should tell you. Mark, he wanted to talk to you. About everything. He thinks you should hear him out. I shook my head immediately. I don't want to. She nodded and dropped the subject. Okay, I won't push it. We talked for hours after that, but not about Mark or the past really. We talked about college, about funny things that had happened recently, about mutual friends, and even little inside jokes from when I was younger. For the first time in years, I could see a version of my mom I'd missed, a version that wanted to connect with me and actually listen. By the time she left, I felt lighter, though I knew it was only the beginning of rebuilding something that had been broken. broken for so long. A few weeks later, my mom called and invited me to dinner. I debated saying no, but in the end, I wanted to close the chapter with some level of civility. I arrived at the restaurant and saw Mark. He glanced at me, voice neutral. "Hello."
"Hi," I replied.
That was it. I didn't start a conversation, didn't ask how he was, didn't open the door to any old habits. I was polite, I was neutral, and that was all. Dinner started with small talk, my mom asking about college, my job, nothing heavy. Mostly, I kept my eyes on my plate. I didn't want to give Mark any room to drag me back into old dynamics. Toward the end, Mark leaned slightly forward, his hands resting on the table. "I want to apologize," he said quietly. "For everything. For how I treated you. I wasn't ready to be a parent in a relationship. I didn't know how to handle it, and I took it out on you. That's on me, and I'm sorry." I nodded once. Okay. That was all I could manage. I didn't forgive him. I didn't engage. I wasn't opening myself up. I just acknowledged that I hurt him. My mom tried to fill the silence with casual conversation, but it didn't matter. I was done with the old patterns. When the meal ended, I stood and thanked my mom. "Thanks for dinner. I should go." Mark didn't say anything else, and I didn't look back as I walked to my car. Outside, the night air felt cool and clear. For the first time in years, the tension that had followed me everywhere didn't exist anymore. I had drawn boundaries. I had reclaimed my space. I had finally taken the first steps toward living for myself on my terms. Driving home, I felt a sense of calm I hadn't felt in a long time. Not joy, not triumph, but relief. And that was enough. Update. A year had passed since graduation, and life felt quieter in a good way. I had a job that I liked, not perfect, but steady, and my own apartment. Walking into my little space after work, making my own decisions about what to eat, what to watch, how late I stayed up, it all felt like freedom I'd worked for. My relationship with my mom was awkward but stable. We talked on the phone once or twice a week, mostly about practical things, how bills were going, updates on my life, the occasional funny story. There were still moments of tension, like when she slipped into old patterns of minimizing my feelings, but I could catch it now and set boundaries. She was trying, and that was enough. Mark? He existed in my life only as a name in the past. I hadn't spoken to him since that dinner, and I didn't plan to. If I ran into him someday, I might nod, exchange a quiet hello, and move on. I didn't carry anger anymore, just a kind of neutral distance. Some days, I thought about all the years I'd spent trying to earn the love and approval I deserved. Some days, the old hurts still whispered at the edges of my mind. But more often, I felt a sense of calm, like I'd finally stepped out of a storm and could breathe. I realized that family doesn't have to be perfect to matter, and that the people who choose you and see you, that's what really counts. My aunt was still my anchor, my mom was trying to be present, and I was learning how to be my own anchor, too. Life wasn't flawless, but it was mine. And for the first time in as long as I could remember, that felt like enough.